Hello everybody, welcome to our new webinar. Today we will be giving part 2 of the Microsoft SQL Server 2016 for DBA and BI webinar. What is our agenda for today? We will be starting with what's new in SQL Server 2016 for the DBA. That will be given by me, Stan Wijnands. Afterwards we will go to what's new in SQL Server 2016 for SSRS, and this will be given by Frederik Aerts. After the session, you can ask any question and we will try to answer it. Let's kick off with what's new in SQL Server 2016 for the DBA. One of the first features I want to talk about is polybase on SQL Server 2016. Now, what is polybase? Polybase is actually an integration piece for SQL Server 2016 between Hadoop and Azure Blob Storage and your SQL Server. Why is this a good feature? Because in the current world we have a lot of different systems. We have Hadoop, we have Azure Blobs and the NoSQL stack, but we still want to query it and we want to have an integration with our SQL Server database. Through Polybase you can now actually query your SQL Server database with data from Hadoop or Blob Storage and use it in one query and present it to your user. This is a feature which is only available for SQL Server 2016. With Polybase, in SQL Server 2016, you can use Hadoop or Azure Blob Storage. With the analytic platform system, formerly known as PDW, you can also use Polybase for Hadoop and Azure Blob Storage. And in the cloud stack for SQL Server 2016, the Azure SQL Data Warehouse, you can only use Azure Blob Storage. So Polybase is actually an integration for Hadoop and Azure Blob Storage for your SQL Server. You can query this, and for a user, he's just querying your SQL Server database. So why should we use Polybase? Well, we should use Polybase because we can now seamlessly access data in Hadoop databases with T-SQL. This means that your query is just the same as a normal SQL Server database. You can have a table A in your SQL Server database and table B in your Hadoop storage, and you can just write T-SQL code to access this data in Hadoop databases with T-SQL. So it's really seamless and it's very easy to do. You don't have a higher learning curve, you don't have to learn to write things in Hadoop. No, you can just use your SQL Server database which is native to you. You can also access Azure Blob Storage with your T-SQL. This will make it a lot easier to just access your blob storage with T-SQL, which is your native language for your database. Also very important for this is you can push your computing down to Hadoop. This means that you have a lot of unstructured data in your Hadoop database, and you want to query it. If you're going to store this in your SQL Server database, you're going to have a hard time getting those results very fast. Afterwards, but now you can just push that computing down to Hadoop, and Hadoop will present the results through Polybase, and it will give you the result through SQL Server database. So your SQL Server will not be processing the data, Hadoop will be doing that, and Hadoop is very strong in processing a lot of unstructured large data, your big data, and pushing that to SQL Server, so this will be a lot faster. Also, you can export data to Hadoop or Azure Blob Storage. This also can be done by T-SQL. This means that you can have a table in your SQL Server database which is not being used a lot or something like that. You can just say, I want to query it every once in a while, but not frequently. You can just export that data to Hadoop or an Azure Blob Storage, and you can still write T-SQL to your SQL Server database and get the data from your Hadoop and Azure Blob Storage. Also very important is it's easily integratable with BI tools. Because you're just querying your SQL Server database, your BI tools will also work, which means you can just use your BI tools to have queries running on SQL Server databases, but also on the Hadoop system. So you don't have to have two different workloads. You can just have your data in your SQL Server database and use your BI tools to query it on Hadoop. So you can use two systems with one feature. And it's also totally transparent to end users. An end user will not know if it's accessing data in Hadoop or in Azure Blob Storage or in SQL Server database. It will just have its normal connection to your SQL Server database, and you put your query in your SQL Server database, and polybase will look, oh, that's data which is coming from our Hadoop system or from our Azure Blob system or from our database. It's totally transparent. So the next feature I want to talk about is the Real-Time Analytics on SQL Server 2016. First, I'm going to tell you what Real-Time Analytics is, and then I'll show you why you should use Real-Time Analytics, and then I'll talk a bit about how this is done in SQL Server 2016. So what is Real-Time Analytics? As you can see, we see in the bottom that we have a database. In normal OLTP and OLAP systems, you will have two databases. You'll have a data warehouse database and you have your OLTP database. Now, with Real-Time Analytics, you will only have one database on which you will do both workloads. You'll have an OLTP workload and an OLAP workload, which will be using the same database. Well, they did this by adding a column store index, a new kind of column store index, which makes that database accessible for both OLTP and OLAP systems. Why should we use Real-Time Analytics? Well, there are three main reasons why you should use it. First, it's not that complex. It's a lot less complex than using a data warehouse. You have your normal ETL load, which takes a lot of time, and you have to take measures to analyze it and create a total ETL workload. Now you're just querying your OLTP, your operational database, which makes it a lot less complex. Also, it's cost effective. Why? You don't need an extra data warehouse. You don't have to take time to analyze your total system for your ETL workload. You don't have to pay people and have hours of work in your ETL workload. You can just query your OLTP database, which makes it very, very fast and very easy and which it takes a lot less time, which makes it cost effective. Also, one thing that's very, very important is you don't have any data latency. In your normal situation, when you have a data warehouse, you have your loads to your data warehouse, which will run every hour, every 24 hours, every week. But now you just query your operational database, so you don't have any data latency. You will have your data as it is in your analysis. How does SQL Server do this? Well, SQL Server created a new column store index, the non-clustered column store index. Actually, it already existed, but they totally altered it. They made it updatable, and they also made it possible to add additional just normal clustered and non-clustered indexes. So you have your hot data in your OLTP workload. This is your basic insert, update, delete, and stuff like that, which you're doing in your OLTP workload, which will be using your normal indexes, your clustered and your non-clustered indexes. But next to that, you have a lot of data which is not being altered anymore, but is in your operational database. This is your warm data. SQL Server gives you the ability to put a non-clustered column store index on it, which is really, really fast for your analysis. And using these both technologies, you can have real-time analytics. You can query your data as it is. You have your OLTP workload, which is working on the hot data part, which makes it really, really fast for your OLTP workload. But you also have your column store index, which is working on your warm data. In combination with your hot data, you get real-time analytics. So that concludes the DBA part for SQL Server 2016, part 2. We'll now give the words to Frederik for the BI part.
We will now be continuing with the reporting services. This will be a demo. This is just my only slide, so hopefully technically everything will go all right. So the first thing is I'm going to show you the new parameters pane, how the parameters are now more visually available. And then the main part will be about the new dashboard, which is built upon HTML5. As we will see, we have several different sections, being the paginated reports. These are the usual reports as we know them. The key performance indicators, the mobile reports, and then also the favorites. And at the end, I will show you how you can add custom branding. So I'm going to leave the presentation right now, and I will go to Visual Studio 2015. It looks very much the same as the previous version, but what is different is that you can have the parameters not only on the pane in the left, but you also have them at the top. So this is new. And you can see that these parameters, they are in sync. So if I change the year with the product, you can see that also over here in the left, that it has been changed. So let's deploy this report, and you can see that the parameters are visually as they are shown over here. So let's deploy it. So now we are in the new portal, the new reporting services portal. This is a blank portal at the moment. I just deployed one report and I did this in the sales folder. So we're going to this paginated report. I'm going to show it to you, and you see that the two parameters are visually the way they were shown in Visual Studio. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about now is how you can add a new KPI. You can do this from the portal as well. You go to New, you go to KPI, and I'm just going to show you quickly how you can do it. I'm going to add a very simple one, but I'm going to base it on some data, some real data that I have stored in a data set. I'm going to use some simple sales data. I'm going to set a manual goal in this case, and I'm going to add a trend also based on the data. I'm going to use the sales data again, and as you can see over here, you see it. I'm going to make it a little bit larger, yet you can see a very small trend over there. I'm going to call this sales bikes KPI. I'm going to create it. And then you can see that another section has been added. So we first had the paginated reports, the usual reports, and now there are the KPIs that have their separate section. So these can be very handy, these KPIs, to have a very quick overview of how well your services that are very important to you are doing. So the next thing we're going to talk about now is the mobile reports. To start working with mobile reports, we need the mobile reports publisher. At this moment, this is not yet integrated in Visual Studio, but maybe it will be one day. People familiar with DataZen will be at home immediately. So now that we are here, what we want to do, of course, is integrate the reporting services. So we need to make a connection. I did this already, but if you add a new server connection, you have to enter the server address, username, and a password. That is pretty straightforward. Now I'm going to add something to the grid, some items. Strangely enough, if I click preview, I immediately see that some reports have been added. So why isn't it? If you go to the data tab at the top, I'm going to show it a little bigger. There you can see that the simulated table has been added. What we want to do, of course, is add our own data. And in the data tab, we go to add data, report server. We go to the server that we connected to, and we attach the data set that we want. And then the data set is added at the bottom. Okay, the next thing that we want to do, of course, is now publish these reports to the reporting server. How do we do that? It's a small button at the top. It's the save button, the second one. You can save it locally, but we want it directly to be published on the reporting server. You choose the location. We put it in the same folder, the sales folder, and we click save. You will get a notification that the report was published. Now we are going back to reporting services. We're going to refresh it. As you can see, another section has been added with mobile reports. Over here. If we click on it, we see the reports. Of course, this is with some sample data. It makes a lot more sense if you do it with your own data. Okay, so a last thing I'm going to talk about now. Sorry, I forgot something important. At the top over here, we have the favorite section. And maybe you are in the situation that you have like a few hundreds of folders and like 5 levels deep. And you always have to scroll down to find the reports that you are interested in. What you can do now, if you have a report that you're really interested in, you click on the report and you say add to favorites. I'm going to do this now for one KPI and for one report. And if you now go to the favorites section, we can see that these reports are available over there. Just as easy, we can remove them from the favorites, but your reports still exist. So one last section I'm going to talk about right now is how can you add some custom branding. You have to go to the site settings at the top. Then you go to branding. And what you can do is you can upload a zip file. That zip file contains 3 files. And I'm going to use one that I downloaded from Microsoft. It's concerning the Xbox team. And what happens, immediately you see that it has been changed, and it's not just on a few pages, it's overall, and you can even use this theme for the mobile reports. So just a few notes on creating your own branding. It is a little bit of effort, because what you have to do is edit a JSON file, and it looks like this. So it's containing a lot of codes, and you have to know which code is conform which color. So it will take you some time or some trial and error, or you can use some other tools. But at the end, as you can see, the effort is really worth it. Okay, so now we're going back to presentation mode. Are there some questions for me, myself, or for Stan? Okay, if there are no questions at the moment, then you can ask them in the next webinar, or you can contact us via the Kohera website. So we thank you for the attention, for being here, and we hope to see you on the next webinar as well. The next one is on April 29, but you can take a look on the Kohera website to see all the webinars that we're still hosting. And see you next time.